Welcome, welcome, welcome. My name is MIKKEL Thorpe. This is the Expat Money Show, and today's guest is the founder and executive director of 1018, a nonprofit organization that works with teen moms in you're gonna have to help me with this one, Namwango slums in Uganda. How did I do?
Namwango, yeah,
Namwango
Namwango.
slums in Uganda,
Yeah.
with a halfway house and a vocational school, a wash campaign in remote once again,
Rakobo.
Rakobo Village inside, sorry everyone, Rakobo Village inside Lake Mboro
Edinburgh.
National Park, and food for children in 3 schools. Please welcome to the show, Jennings Wright. Jennings, sorry about that. That was a brutal introduction, but you are very welcome on the show. I'm so happy to have you here.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here.
Jennings, why don't you take a moment and kind of walk us through your backstory? How did you get working in Africa? How did you become an expat? So many things to explore today. I'm really curious.
Well, I did a lot of traveling as a child, thanks to my grandparents. So I was always open. We lived in Guatemala when I was a kid. My dad was there on a contract. And when we became empty nesters, my husband and I looked around for the new adventure and decided to buy a hotel in Nicaragua.
How you do?
Moved there. So we lived in Nicaragua for a while. Before that, I had started a nonprofit in 2008. Not totally sure actually what I was going to do, and then reconnected with a friend who was living in Uganda. She got us over there, and as soon as my kids and I were there, we're like, this is absolutely what this whole thing was about. So our first visits were in 2009, and I've been 13 times to date, even with a few years of Nicaragua in the middle when I didn't go. So it's been a really fun, frustrating, discouraging, exciting adventure, for the last 12 years.
I bet. So you said you did a nonprofit. Was the original nonprofit in Uganda, or was it that just like experience that you had that helped get you prepared for this experience?
Yeah, so none of that actually.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, excellent.
Yeah. So I had just an idea for literally probably 7 or 8 years that I just wanted to start a nonprofit. My mom, my grandmother always volunteered, always worked in local organizations and fundraised. And so it was just part of my DNA, I guess. And when I started the nonprofit, we had friends living in Thailand and friends living in Zambia at that time. And my thought was, well, I can use this to raise money for them. That would just give, instead of our $100 a month, we could, raise more money. And so I went through the whole process, not totally sure what we were going to do, but just it's a process. So I started the process. And mid-December, we got our IRS approval. And then over Christmas, I reconnected with Suzanne in Uganda. And so we started helping her just a little bit, and ended up going to visit, and the rest is history. But honestly, I had no idea. That's the truth.
Well, we're going to have to get more into detail than the rest is history, because we've still got a lot of recording time here.
Right.
All right. So let's break down what was your opinions, your thoughts, your feelings the first time you've been to Uganda. I guess from the charities, the nonprofit side, but also just a country and a culture side as well. Because I've been to Uganda. I traveled extensively through that area. I haven't been 13 times like you have, but I certainly have the country certainly left some strong emotions with me and some strong feelings with me.
Yeah, I think anybody that's been to Uganda, that's what they say. I know people have been all over Africa, and I have only been to Egypt as far as the rest of Africa, but it just gets in your heart somehow. So I helped Suzanne from afar initially to rent an office for a ministry she was working with in the slum. And my daughter went over by herself at 16 in May to visit, because my friend's daughter's the same age. And my son and I went in September, and I got a 500 millimeter lens because this was going to be my only trip to Africa. And I was going to go on safari, and we got there, we went down in the slum. I've been in slums. I've been in slum in Haiti. I've been in slum in Guatemala. We were there during the Civil War. So, I mean, I have done that, but not like Namwango. I mean, it's really bad. My son was 12 at the time, and we were walking around there, and the smell is horrendous, and it's, you know, just waste everywhere, and children and dogs and drunk people. And we went to visit a family, and this is when I knew. This is the minute I knew. We went to visit a family. It was a Jaja grandmother who had all of her grandchildren, 6 grandchildren, living with her because their parents had died of AIDS. And like from 3 different children, she had all their children because they were all orphans. And she couldn't afford for them to go to school. One of them was HIV positive. She couldn't afford the medicine. And my son, who was 12, turned to me and said, I will pay for them to go to school. And that was it. That was the moment, because I'm thinking, yes, of course you have to pay for the, I mean, like in your adult mind, you're thinking, of course you have to do this, but how do we make it work? And when my 12-year-old son, who, by the way, didn't have enough money to send them to school, but turns to me and says, that's when I just knew that was the moment. And we've been working there ever since.
Wow. Okay, follow-up questions. My goodness. Yeah, that would have been, I can imagine, would have hit you like a ton of bricks.
Yeah, and we homeschooled our kids. Okay. And so, you know, education, obviously, to most of us is a huge deal anyway. And then having been responsible for my kids' education, and my son, who is the least student-ish of my children, to just, I mean, no hesitation. He heard the story. He got the need. He said, let's fix it. I mean, basically. And I'm a very practical person. So my brain's like, well, yeah, let's fix it. You know, I don't know how to fix it, but let's see what we could do.
So that entrepreneurial mindset right from the beginning instilled in him.
Yeah.
That's also interesting that you mentioned that your children are homeschooled, because I homeschool my daughter. And when I listen to your story about sending kids to school, my first instinct is, well, like, I don't agree with school. So, but in other instances, I mean, it's something that I would have to rectify as well. So it's interesting that your child who is homeschooled, his first instinct is, I need to send them to school. And he didn't go through school himself. So it's this kind of weird piece to put together.
It is. And there are actually a lot of reasons in Uganda, in the slum in particular, and especially 12 years ago, there were a lot of people who had escaped the LRA in the north who had come down to the slums. So Uganda, like every other African country, is very tribal. And so Kampala is part of the Buganda kingdom. There still is a Kabaka, a king of every tribe. He lives in Kampala. But a lot of these people had come down from the north, from just below South Sudan. And their tribe is Luo, which is a Choli tribe, and they spoke a totally different language. Then you have people like in every slum or ghetto in every city that have come to the city to make money, right? I mean, they're going to leave the village and they're going to come. Vastly illiterate population. I mean, I don't know the stats because probably nobody's ever done it, but there's 30,000 people living in Namwango, and I would guess the illiteracy rate is over 75%. So you can't they're not going to be homeschooled. I mean, it's not possible. The only way they're going to learn is to go learn. Now, I have a problem. Uganda has a big boarding school tradition, and I don't think you send 6-year-olds to boarding school. So there is a give and take there. But the only way they will learn, the only way they will become literate is to go to school. Secondly, the vast majority of the poor in Uganda only eat when they go to school. They don't get a meal at home. A lot of the schools will have a nurse So maybe they have a medical issue, their parents can't afford to take them anywhere, but a nurse might identify it. So in a place like Uganda, school is much more of a safety net with, than we would associate with it in a Western culture, So one of the problems with these lockdowns last year and the lockdowns this year is all these kids who were getting 1 and 2 or 2 meals a day at school suddenly were not getting any meals because the parents couldn't feed them before. They knew they were getting food at school, and then now they don't have food again. So it's much more than what you and I would think of as school.
But it does go to show, because I mean, I have ideological beliefs and I want to challenge them. I want to see where they fit and where they don't fit. If anything, I'm a realist. I mean, I have traveled extensively and I understand that there are no simple options or opinions for these types of things. Even I think when we were talking privately, maybe a month or two ago, I think I was quite vocal, like I don't normally believe in charities or support charities or anything like that. But you told me a bit about your story and I was like, wow, that's intense. Like I want to learn more. I'm curious. So that's what we're doing today. So I guess explain maybe some of the other reasons, like why particularly Uganda has so many problems, because I've traveled a lot in Africa. I've been to South Africa, Botswana, Zimbabwe. I've been to Nigeria multiple times. I've been to Kenya and a bunch of places there. Are these because of things that happened with Idi Amin, or because of the war that Rwanda had and spillover? Like, I don't understand the reasons for this.
There are a few reasons, and I am by no means an expert, but one of the first domino to fall, if you will. So Winston Churchill called Uganda the Pearl of Africa. And what England did when they colonized is they made Uganda the breadbasket and they developed Kenya, right? So they put in big road systems and cities and things like that in Kenya, and they wanted Uganda to grow food. Okay, so they didn't put in infrastructure, and they didn't. Yes, they had like governors and people there, but it was sort of the Nebraska of like, it was like, yeah, that's where we're growing our food, and so we need enough roads to get it to Kenya, to get it to Mombasa, to get out into the ocean or whatever, but we don't really need to develop it because we want them to be growing food. That was problem one, as far as in comparison, say, to Kenya. Okay. Then when independence came and Idi Amin came, of course, that was terrible. I actually was just reading news while I was waiting for this, and Museveni is saying now everybody in Africa should speak Swahili. Well, Ugandans don't want to speak Swahili because Idi Amin made all his soldiers speak Swahili. So only like on the Kenya side, over around Tororo and all that, if you're from that area, you speak Swahili, but they don't like it because they remember that that's what those terrible people were speaking as they were killing everybody. So that was a problem. The British form of school is a problem because you test at various levels. And so in P7, if you don't test well, you're done with school. Well, you're 14. So that's a problem. So, and Museveni, who's been president now for 36 years, doesn't care. And that's a problem. I mean, he's locked everybody down. They've gotten big money from IMF loans and nobody's seen any money. Nobody's getting many food. They're keeping people in their homes or arresting them and fining them, but they aren't giving away any money. So it's a systemic rolling pattern of the elites versus, those people over there. which is the most of the people, but it's a problem. It is. And you know, China has come in. There's another article today, I didn't read it, but some big thing from China is open. So Uganda's let all these Chinese companies come in and make factories, but they bring Chinese workers in. The only thing they hire Ugandans for, like janitors and security guards and stuff like that. And China owns everything in Uganda now.
Yeah, I mean,
they've given
China
so much
is going
loans.
and basically owning Africa. I mean, that's what they're doing at the moment. They have a giant appetite for natural resources, and they are trading infrastructure for natural resources and for UN votes. I mean, if you go back to the 1970s and look at how the UN voted and Africa, it was all US, 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 US. And now out of what, 50, 52 countries, look at the percentage that are voting for China. I mean, in China's direction and against Taiwan. I mean, it's just huge, huge numbers. Yeah. And they're putting in roads and highways and infrastructure and things like that, but it's Chinese engineers and it's Chinese labor, it's Chinese equipment and everything that's going in.
Yeah, the last time I flew there, I flew through Doha, and about 80% of my flight from Doha to Entebbe was Chinese who had come from China. And so, and Chinese people, so Uganda has a big Indian heritage population. A lot of Indian families moved to Uganda. Then they left during Idi Amin, but then they came back. Yep. And they integrate with Ugandans and Ugandan society. They are in government, they're in parliament, they're, you know, doing various things. The Chinese don't. The Chinese people are over here with us Chinese people, and they look down on the Ugandans. They fly in, they work, they fly back to China, they send their money back to China. So it just, and these lockdowns of the last 2 years or year and a half have further separated, because we were talking about school. What the government says is we are putting classes on the radio and online. And so you can do these classes at home by listening to the radio. But number one, they're doing them in English. And if you didn't go to school, you don't know English. The parents are not literate, so they can't help. And nobody has a computer. And if they do, they can't afford enough data to do the classes. So the people who are continuing their education are in international schools and private schools and good boarding schools, or whose parents can afford it. And everybody else is just left behind.
Okay, so I also wanted to ask, because if Uganda is the breadbasket and they can grow anything and everything there, are people able to grow? Like you said that they're locked in their homes, like there's these types of COVID lockdowns at the moment. How is that happening?
So last year we had 4 months of almost complete lockdown. More people died getting beaten up for breaking the lockdown than died of COVID. But they did allow farming, and the only real industrial scale farming are owned by Chinese. They have giant, like 5,000, 10,000 acre rice fields and stuff. Of course, they were still going. The sugarcane people were still going. The smaller farms, the charcoal producers, they had to get special passes if they needed a vehicle. This time around, they have allowed agriculture and tourism, I don't know why you'd want to go, to be open. But you can't have any cars on the road. So again, we're sort of in that situation. We also have had in some places drought and in some places too much rain. So it hasn't been a great year in general for agriculture. And of course, you have to be able to harvest and you have to be able to sell it. If you can't sell it, you can't buy more seeds or plants or, whatever you're doing. The problem is not as much in the villages as far as food right now, this time of year, as it is in the cities, because prices have gone up about 35 to 40% in the last 2 weeks. And partly because there's not enough lorries bringing food to the city.
Mm-hmm,
and then
mm-hmm.
they shut down everything but government sanctioned markets, and they're making people sleep there. They can't go home. They have to live there, but they're not getting all the product. And then they're not allowing people to go to the markets, or the people are afraid to go to the markets to buy the food. So they have created this sort of never ending cycle of, if we get the food, it costs too much. And I'm afraid to go out because I don't want to get beaten up for not doing something I'm supposed to be doing, or fined or thrown in jail. So the market people are sleeping there, but they're not selling anything. I mean, it's been very challenging.
To quote unquote protect people from a disease.
Right. And they've now, when they did this lockdown this time, they had only had like 562 deaths from COVID total.
Out of a country of how many people?
44 million.
44 million. Jeez.
Where a huge number of them are immunocompromised from HIV/AIDS. So, and I think yesterday, the number was still 1,300 or something out of the whole country. But they've terrorized people. I mean, people are terrified to go outside, and they can't work. So, I mean, it's bad.
That's brutal. I remember when I went to Uganda, I did go there for tourism, and it seemed to me like you could take a seed and throw it in the dirt, and a week later you would have a plant. Like, it was just this lush, green, mountainous, beautiful, stunning topography of a country, which just had, I mean, farming to me just seemed like it would just be so easy. The soil was so nutrient rich and everything grew, and you had lots of rain and everything like that. So it's so sad to hear what the government is doing and how it is affecting the people, and how people are not even getting food now in a country which should be able to produce massive amounts of food.
Right. And it's, we have people coming to our gates every day that haven't eaten for days. And the last time they ate posho, which is just cornmeal, really fine cornmeal. It's ugali, and in Kenya, you probably had it many times.
Yep.
But they make it into like a porridge, like a soup almost, to make it last longer. And they will have eaten one time of that in 3 days because they can't buy it. And we bought, when the lockdown first came, we bought 50 kilo sacks for 70,000 shillings, and now they're 95,000 shillings. That's just 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Jesus. And then, okay, so that's what's happening right now with COVID and the situation there. Now, speak to me about the teen pregnancies, because when we were chit-chatting on the phone earlier, you mentioned some things that are pretty shocking, and a couple of stories. I don't know if you remember which ones, but maybe you can share some of those things that you've seen in Uganda.
This is one of our biggest problems / opportunities, whatever. So in the slum in particular, this happens in general in the slum, because obviously if I'm in the slum, I can't go grow tomatoes or raise a chicken or something. So young men, particularly though, so all the slums, Namuongo is Kampala's and Uganda's largest slum, but there are several slums in Kampala, and they back up to fairly affluent areas. And so the young men from, in particular, these surrounding areas buy food, they buy sanitary napkins, and then they go and tell these girls they have food and they have sanitary napkins, but they have to exchange sex for them. And so the men don't want to use condoms, even though condoms are free. There's virtually no female contraception. And these girls are as young as like 13 and 14. So, and so in the last lockdown, and it's easy to say this is voluntary prostitution. Well, okay, but they're starving, and what else do they don't have anything else. And their parents say to their teenage girls, maybe you need to go out and find a way to get some food. Well, I don't know what they think. I mean, they clearly know what they're telling them to do, or they sell them as brides to get food. And so last year in the lockdown in Namwango, over 50% of the teenage girls were pregnant. In some villages and towns, smaller towns, as many as 2/3 of girls, 14 to 19, got pregnant. And we are now about 6 weeks from the partial lockdown to this, and then this full lockdown, and we are now seeing pregnant girls come to the office. And we've had girls who are lured into homes and raped and locked away for forced prostitution and enslavement to clean their house, and they're selling them to other men. We had a girl get away last week from somebody. She was not raped, but she was beat up. We went to the police and they said, well, she wasn't raped, so we're just going to put it in the file with these hundreds of other ones we've gotten in the last week. So it's really a continuing problem. And, you know, you can't blame the girls. What are they supposed to do?
Yeah, no doubt.
So we're trying to do a lot of sensitization on both sides, to the men and to the girls and to the parents, and just say, this is not a solution, because you have 14-year-olds, 15-year-olds, 16-year-olds with babies. They're going to have those kids for the rest of their life. That's another mouth to feed. You going and saying doing that to get food is great. Well, then they bring another mouth home, you know? So it's a huge, huge issue.
And then I remember when you were telling me a story about a girl who had just came in off the street to your office, and she had just given birth and had the baby with her, and like the umbilical cord hadn't even been cut. And like,
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. We have had several, going from homeless and, I mean, really sick, and, you know, we get a medical care and all that. I mean, we have success stories. Obviously.
Yeah. Okay. So let's tell me about the work. I've gone through this with you because I want people to hear it. And, I think it's no surprise. Like I'm having a bit of trouble with this. Like this is difficult for me to hear. Let's switch gears a little bit and get away from what the problem is. Let's talk about your work and how you're helping and what's going on that front.
Okay. So last year with the lockdowns and all of this, teen pregnancy became a big thing. And we were working with teen girls, and some of those teen girls were mothers in the slum prior to last year's lockdown. We were working on the vocational side, what we call small skills, something you can learn to make in a workshop in a day, and then making soap and longer term things. And that's what we had been focusing on. When all of this teen pregnancy came up last year, I just thought, you know, we just need a halfway house. We can't help these girls in doing what we're doing if they're dying on the street. So we started in August. We ended up opening in November. We called the Ross House after my grandmother, who, as I said, was very volunteer oriented, where we take in teen moms in crisis. And so they come to us. We've had, you know, homeless, literally in the street, baby has, you know, umbilical cord, infections, everything. We bring them in, we give them psychosocial counseling, sexual trauma. I've written a sexual trauma workbook. They take them through the sexual trauma workbook. We do, but we have a vocational program. So they go to the vocational program to learn either hairdressing or tailoring. They get medical care for themselves and their babies. They're getting fed. And then we're teaching them. I mean, these girls are 15, 16 years old. They don't know how to take care of a baby. Okay. So we're teaching them childcare and how to wash a baby and how to know when the baby needs to go to the doctor. I mean, the things that kind of seem to us like, well, they should know that. Well, I didn't know that when I was 14. So it's about we don't have a limit. It's about a 4 to 5 month stay. And then we just, it's a little delayed because of this lockdown, just opened the Subi house. Subi in Luganda means hope, which is a transition house. So we moved 2 girls from the Ross house who had completed everything. And they have moved to the Subi house. We have one girl still at the Ross house, but now we have room for 3 more because we expect them with this. And at the Subi house, they will become more responsible for their life, but they have a social worker living with them they're continuing one-on-one counseling. They're continuing with their sexual trauma counseling. They're continuing to learn how to budget and save some money and be able to then move from the transition house out on their own and not get right back into having to sell themselves. They've learned a skill, they've learned business, they've learned savings, they've healed themselves from the trauma. And one of those girls that just moved is being trained because she's doing so well. She's actually going to be a paid mentor in our program and will end up being the caretaker at the Subi house because she's just done so well. After 6 months or a year, I mean, not tomorrow, but we're taking her through additional training for that. So, these girls have mostly not been to school. A lot of them are illiterate. A lot of them are either completely abandoned or actual orphans. 65% of Uganda's population is under 18 because so many people have died from AIDS. Like there's the older generation and then 65% of people. Can you imagine 65% of the country's teenagers and kids? So they don't have people teaching them a lot of the things that middle generation that has died from AIDS might be there to teach them. So we are sort of trying to stand in that gap a little bit for the girls that we can bring in. We also have other girls in our vocational training program. So we had 20 girls going through vocational training. And fortunately, that term had just ended when the lockdowns came. We were ready and done orientation for the next term, which we will start whenever we're allowed to. But at least that first group was finished. So that's great. And we actually got 7 girls hired, like legit hired with a salary from 10 in the hairdressing.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I like that you're really focusing on the skills and helping people to be able to help themselves. I think that a big part of my problem with what I would consider charity is if you feed them for the day, great. And now I just don't like it if people are going to become dependent on these things, opposed to trying to go out there and build something or get a job or contribute or do something. But if your main focus on hairdressing, and then they can get a job in this, and now they can provide for themselves. I mean, that seems to me a lot better way of doing it and a lot more sustainable.
That's what we've always done. We now work with teen moms. Before we moved to Nicaragua, I worked mostly with HIV widows, and we had 2 cooperatives of those. And prior to the cooperatives, we had done micro business grants. Now, I'm not doing a loan because I'm not taking somebody who has no money and putting them in debt. My feeling, I was told many years ago, if you can't afford to give it, you can't afford to loan it. Yeah. So they had to come up with a business plan. We had a social worker that worked through a business plan. They couldn't just say, I want to sell charcoal and not have any idea how to make that work as a business. We did about 65 grants over 5 years. We had one woman not do what she said, only one. We had people buying land, building houses, paying their kids' school fees. My son even said to me at one time, he was like maybe 16, and we had gone out and walked around everybody's houses and visited. And he said, this isn't as fun as it used to be anymore. And I said, why is it not fun? He said, because they don't need us anymore. And I got it because, when you go and you're like, I see a need, I can meet that need. Yes, that is within our purview of things. You're like, that's great. And then when they're building houses, you're like, well, this is great, but what's our job? So we're taking that. We have never been, other than we had a couple of elderly widows who clearly were not going to start a business. I mean, they had AIDS. They were 68, which the life expectancy for a woman in Uganda is 61. So they were way past their life expectancy anyway. We did help them some without any expectation from them, but that was 2. so now we've taken that same focus to these girls. We're going to train you with the skill. If you're illiterate, we're going to teach you basic reading and writing and basic English so you can talk to a customer. And we're going to teach you how to save some money. We're going to teach you how to do some basic business building things, how to preserve your capital, and how, what your cost of goods sold are, and what's your return on your investment, and all that. Teach them those basic skills. And then they're still in our program, even if they've graduated. If they need help, if they have a question, if something happens, they come back. But I'm not taking care of somebody who's capable of taking care of themselves. And they don't want that. They want to do stuff. The girls now they're bored. They're like, what can we do? We're not allowed to go out. Can we make something? Can we do something? What can we do? So we've been working on that,
And then with your programs, if someone donates, where does the money go? Is it used on expensive marketing and flying you private jet over there? And
that would be a good expense. No, 100% of donations go to the program. I am a volunteer. Everybody that works with me is a volunteer. We have a small board. Everybody does it as a volunteer. We have no admin fees. We have no marketing fees. We have angel donors who pay for our website. They pay for our various, the little QuickBooks and little things like that you have to have. We don't do any paid marketing. When I go over, we donate personally. We donate the money because I want the tax write-off, but we donate the money that it takes for our trip over there. So, when you've been there, and we usually stay, 3 to 4 weeks or something. So over 13 trips, I've been there over a year's worth of time. And you see what $5 or $10 or $20 does. You can't take $5 or $20 and say, well, let's go have a staff coffee, because they could eat for a month. And I'm fortunate we have another business. I have another, I work in our business, and I don't have to make money from it. So, and our plan is to keep it that way. If we get, Charity Water does this, and they do fine. They have angel donors who pay for their admin, and individual donations go to the work. And I figure if they can do it, well, we've been around longer than they have, but if they can do it, we can do it. So,
well, I'm teasing a little bit with those questions, but it's certainly true with other organizations. I have done a lot of research with some of these massive charity organizations, and I remember the statistic. It was something like 93% of donation goes to administrative marketing and board of directors and things like this. And I don't think that a lot of people know and understand that, where very little of the money is actually going to the intended cause. And so I did know the answer with yours, that literally 100% go through. And I think you were even telling me, if you need to buy something like a water pump or a sewing machine or something like that, and you get the money in, it's like someone can actually donate to a particular thing, like a particular project. Can you tell me a little bit more about that and explain
it? If you go, we use DonorBox, and you have the box, you go on there you can donate, and you can choose where your money will go. We have for the water, sanitation, and hygiene campaign, we have food for schools, we have the Ross House, and a general fund. I mean, some people just want to help. Right now, we've been running this Adopt a Girl program to feed these girls' families during this lockdown. There's also a comment box in there, so you can specifically say, or just DM me and say, hey, I'm going to make a general donation, but I really want it to go to this. That's totally fine, because I can't have so many drop down boxes,
Sure.
But we also turn it around. So our average turnaround time on it let's say today you donated for Adopt a Girl program for a month, that $50, our average turnaround is 5 days till it buys what you, and it's a lot of times faster. A lot of times it's faster than that. If it's something we have to order or it has to be built, okay, but we might have paid for it already. You know, we don't have a hierarchy. I'm the executive director. We're small. I have a small board. They pretty much say, you know what you're doing, do it. If it's a big decision, we talk about, you know, then we talk about it. Mm-hmm. But I talk on video twice a week, at least, with my director in Uganda. So if I talk to Ronald, we had a meeting yesterday, he says, we need, well, he did say, we need some storage, locking storage for the girls at the Ross house, because they have small things or their own money or whatever. I sent the money yesterday. They're 7 hours ahead. It's already bought today. We have it. Mm-hmm. So, you know, and I use an app that allows me to send money with no fees. Now, there is a tax on their end. The government on their end imposes a tax for money transfers. But, you know, even if you donate, you can choose to pay the credit card fees. So you can donate $100 and then it will also take out the credit card fee. So I don't have to pay that. So our goal is that as much of the money goes as far as it can. And we are experts at squeezing those dollars, you know, to try and make it go as far as we can.
Amazing. And I remember also in our conversations, if someone does make a donation, it is a tax write-off because you were a registered charity.
We are. We're 501c3. So obviously that depends on your country of tax and whatever, you know, the laws are, because if you donate $100, your CPA will tell you how much of that $100 based on your income is tax deductible. But we are a 501c3 registered charity. So you get a letter from us, a statement in January saying this is what you donated to us. Even if you make an in-kind donation, so you have us piggybacking on your QuickBooks account, for instance, mm-hmm. I give you an in-kind donation for the monetary value of that, and you still get a donation for that. You know, we make it as easy as humanly possible for people to get involved and be able to donate. And when I can go over, which I was supposed to go next month, and now with the lockdown, I'm not, we take stuff over. And if people want to donate things, we take that over and distribute it. There are some things that we have realized over the years that it's better to buy there and plow into the local economy. But the quality of things, everything's coming from China. So electronics and things like that, especially coming from here, is a much better quality. So we'll take things over. You know, like I said, we make it as easy as we can for people to get involved.
Mm-hmm. And what is a normal size donation? How do people normally contribute who want to help?
Well, we have two ways to go. The average donation is probably about, well, the average one-time donation is probably about $50. We have a lot of monthly subscribers, and the average is about $40. So you can sign up to subscribe monthly, which of course for us helps us because we can budget. Like, I know I have X number of monthly subscribers and that amount is this. It's not that you can't stop it, but at least we have some trajectory of where we're going. But we have, during crisis situations like this, we've gotten a lot of one-time donations to help us deal with this lockdown situation. So you can choose one-time or monthly. And, you know, honestly, $5 in Uganda goes a long way. You know, anywhere in Africa, but it goes a long way. Right now, the exchange rate is, I think, 3,410 shillings to the dollar. And so I just said that pasho is 95,000 shillings. You can see that you can get a lot of food, 50 kilograms of pasho for 95,000 shillings. If 3,400 shillings is a dollar, you know, you can do a lot.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And if people want to get involved, what is the website? Where can they make donations or subscribe for the monthly?
So the website is www.18.org. There's boxes and donate buttons all over that site.
They won't miss it.
You can't miss it. You can explore the site and see our board, our staff. We have a blog. I update it. You can join our mailing list. Instagram is making all kinds of changes. So we're trying to push people to the mailing list just so they see what's happening. We are also on Instagram at 1018 Uganda and Facebook at 1018.org. And I post twice a day, probably on social media. I send out one newsletter a week during this more crisis time. So we are very active in letting people know what's going on, you know, where your money's going, what we need money for, and success stories. I mean, look, we talk about all these terrible things. Uganda is a wonderful place. There are wonderful people in Uganda. Not right now so much, but we post a lot of pictures of people having fun and dancing and kids playing, because we don't want you to think that Uganda is just this cesspool of terribleness. I mean, it's wonderful. I would move there.
It was one of the most beautiful countries I ever went to. I've been to over 100 countries, and I was blown away how stunning, beautiful the country is. I met the people, oh my God, with the biggest smiles, and people were so warm. We had so many conversations, which is people at the market or on the side of the road, or just, you know, just random people. I went there, I don't even remember what year it was, probably almost 10 years ago, I want to say. And I was going to hike with the mountain gorillas. So we were in Uganda for about 2 weeks, and then we just very briefly went into the Congo and into Rwanda, and we were just kind of in that area, and yeah, just hiking, and chimpanzees and safaris and silverback mountain gorillas. I think we figured out that day that probably on planet Earth, me and my friends who I was with were probably the only human beings, the only tourists on planet Earth that day to see mountain gorillas in their natural habitat, because you could see the logbook of the rangers, and there was no one who had signed in that day, and was already like quite late in the day. And Uganda is a more popular place to go than in Rwanda, or certainly than the Congo.
Right.
And that was kind of the only location that you could really do this as a tourist in Uganda. So it was just an amazing opportunity. I had a phenomenal time. And yeah, we've talked about some pretty horrendous things that are happening there at the moment. But I do agree with you that the country is beautiful and it has a lot to offer. I'm just sad to hear about some of these things at the moment.
Honestly, I mean, the people are just so hospitable. Mm-hmm. They're really quiet. It's funny because if you're somewhere and you can always tell the Kenyans, because Kenyans are sort of, you know, they do a lot of this stuff with their arms and they're loud, and the Ugandans, you're leaning in going, can you say that again? Because I couldn't hear you. But their country's beautiful. They're proud of their country. You know, we call it the one fun thing. So if we go for 3 weeks, it's hard. I mean, you have 4 days of travel there and back, the time difference, working in the slums or working in remote, really bad. I mean, we haven't even talked about like Rakobo Village and the other schools and stuff, really bad environments, and it's exhausting. So when my kids were going, we homeschooled, so they would go with me, and we just did one fun thing. So we've been on safaris, and we've been whitewater rafting on the Nile, and we've stayed on this resort in island in the middle of the Nile that was all hand built, and all of this stuff, because there's so many great things about Uganda that you don't hear about, because you hear about what we've been talking about, the bad things. Mm-hmm. But it has virtually all the animals that Kenya has. It doesn't have, maybe up in Kadepo, they have cheetahs and stuff, but I've seen lions and leopards and giraffes and, you know, all those things. You can go to Bwindi and do the gorillas. They have at Queen Elizabeth, which we went to last year, but didn't see, the lions that live in the trees, which I think it's the only place in the world where lions have adapted to live in the trees. So, I mean, it's got some really, really cool things.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. I mean, it is such a stunning, beautiful place. When you go over there and you're helping, and what is the reaction from the people? How have they been towards you? sorry to say, but like a couple of white people coming over to Africa kind of is all these different types of connotations to it. What has been your experience? Are they welcoming towards you with the charity? Do they want your help? Do they understand? I'm trying to balance all these things in my head as a libertarian and as an international person. And I still don't I don't want to say understand.
What you're asking me. Here's I have been there a lot by myself, or because I had a friend that lived there. A lot of times I'd go like from Kampala to Jinja by myself. My kids would stay in Kampala with my friend and her kids. And I'm a people watcher because I'm a writer. Mm-hmm. All writers are people watchers.
Me too. Yep.
Here's what happens in Uganda. It was same in Nicaragua. Western countries, citizens of Western countries, that's the better way to say it, form a nonprofit through whatever agency it is, either themselves like me or, through a big charity or whatever. And they go over and they proceed to tell people what they need. Okay. So I'm American and I'm going to go to Nicaragua or I'm going to go to Uganda and I'm going to tell you what you need. Mm-hmm. We worked in Andros in the Bahamas, exactly the same thing, right? That's almost never what they actually want or what they think that they need. Mm-hmm. And I have watched big groups, mission groups go over and they work Ugandans to death and they go out and they do things and they say, oh, they were so excited we were there. They sat and listened for 2 hours. And I said, what'd you do at the end of the talk? And they said, well, we gave away sweeties and shoes. And I'm like, why do you think they sat there for 2 hours? You gave away candy and shoes. They could care less what you said, right? Mm-hmm. So a couple of things that we do differently. 100% of the time I work with Ugandan organizations. Our partners are Ugandans. I don't partner with Americans. Now we have friends that are Dutch and German and Irish and English that work there, but all of us work for Ugandans. Okay. That's the first thing. I'm not going to go tell them what they need. Mm-hmm. If you go in the slum in Uganda and you ask a mother what she needs, she will 100% of the time say school fees for her kids. I have never had a mother tell me anything other than that, even if they have no food. Mm-hmm. In Andros, in the Bahamas, we walked around and I asked the same question, and 100% of the time they said a job. Neither of those things are necessarily what Westerners think that people need. Okay. Mm-hmm. So first thing is I let the Ugandans tell me what we talk together and we say, now, do I help them come up with solutions? Sure. But I don't tell them what the need is. They tell me what the need is. So that's the first thing. Second thing, again, we are empowering people to take control of their own life. I don't want them dependent on us, on anybody for their food, all of their food. Do they need help for a short amount of time? Sure. Do these girls need a safe place to go at the Ross House? Sure. Are they going to live at the Ross House till they're 40? No. Mm-hmm. Right? We're going to train them to survive and on their own and thrive on their own. So if I walk in the slums, I get the Mzungu dance. All the little kids, Mzungu, Mzungu, and they run around and dance. I have been the first white person that children have seen, and they have screamed and cried when they saw me in the village. But if you go and you sit down and you look at them and you say, what do you need? And how can I help you to get that? They're thrilled. Because somebody's listening to them, they're not saying, hey, I'm here to paint your house when they don't want their house. A group came and painted houses and they didn't ask the people in the houses if they wanted them painted. Right? You've been there. They liked that mud. They have the red mud and all that stuff. They didn't want to paint it. So our goal is to make them not need us anymore. Yeah. I'm not going and being the white savior and let me tell you that we're so smart and you're not. And let me tell you why your culture is not how it should be. They have a wonderful culture.
Yeah.
They have some bad things. Your culture, my culture, we all have bad things. And I think, and I've had many Ugandans say, why doesn't everybody do it this way? And I'm like, it makes sense to me. I don't really know why people don't do it this way. I mean, our director of the schools, the 2 schools that we work with in the West, a church was working with them and supporting them and providing stuff. And then they were going to send somebody. And they said, we're going to send her. We're going to build a house because they couldn't rent a house. I don't know. We want you to change the name of your organization, and we're going to be the directors if we send someone. And Gideon said, well, no, thank you. I mean, I don't understand how Western people think that that's okay.
Yeah.
You know? So
I think that there's so many problems that you've just highlighted, and like problems that I have with charities. And that's why I don't normally give to any type of charity. What I do is I travel to a country and then I rent a place to stay from a local person, and I go to the local restaurants and I hire a guide who works as a translator, and I use a local driver, and they work, and I am very happy to exchange my dollars for those services. It's a free market enterprise. I mean, it's, for me, that was always my way of doing, I won't even do this air quotation charity, because it's not charity. I mean, it's me exchanging, this voluntary exchange, which is what I believe in. So getting my head around all these things is it's a big one for me. It's a big one for me.
Well, my superpower, this is my kids tell me, my superpower is a problem solver, and I'm very practical. I've always been very practical, very literal to a fault sometimes, and a problem solver. So I started a nonprofit on my own. I didn't know what I was doing, but I didn't ask anybody. I just figured I could figure it out. I saw a need. It seemed a practical way to solve it. I had seen my mom, my grandmother fundraise and do stuff. It just seemed like a natural way to do it. And then as I got into doing it, I realized we weren't doing it the way other people, we weren't doing it the right way, right? This isn't the right way that you do it. I actually saw an article, I didn't read it, saw an article, can 100% charities survive or something like that? And I'm like, well, yeah, it depends on what you're trying to do. I don't have any problem with people making money working. I don't. And I am very fortunate that I don't have to. But I don't see it the way people see it, because I don't see it as a job. And I don't see I see my job as solving a problem within the confines of the problem. Because if I'm Western and I go to Uganda and I try and solve their problems in my Western way, it's not going to work. Yeah. Because they don't have that same culture. They don't think things through the same way. It's not that, and that is not an intelligence thing. It's like Asians. My daughter, when we were homeschooling, did a math program that was an Asian based. It drove her crazy because she said it's like a spiral and they keep coming back. And she wanted to finish something and then move on. And it was like, she said, I can't do it. Well, that's just a different way of thinking. It's not a wrong way of thinking. So we go over there and we say, you don't think right. Let me tell you how to think right.
The arrogance is just...
Well, it's arrogant, but also it's not going to stick. So if it doesn't stick, you are only making an impact for the minute you're there. You know, clinic groups, medical groups go over and they give away vitamins. So they give away a month's worth of vitamin A. Vitamin A, they're all deficient in vitamin A. That's awesome. But what do they do after 30 days? So for 30 days, they're not vitamin A deficient, but then for the rest of their lives, they're vitamin A deficient. I mean, that is not how you solve a problem.
Yeah, that makes sense. There's so many moral and ethical problems I have with the way that things are normally done, or at least the way that I perceive that they're normally done from my 21 years of traveling to quote unquote developed countries and seeing how Westerners come in. You know, you did say that you are very fortunate that you do not have to treat this as a job, in that you're not drawing a salary for this because you have other sources of income. And same as you, I have no problem with people earning a living. Actually, I want people to earn a living. I do have a problem when someone writes their marketing material in a way which shows that the money is going towards helping the people and they're taking fat salaries themselves. I don't think that that is honest and ethical. I think that if there is transparency and people understand what they're going into and they can make an informed decision about it, then, I mean,
I think the other thing that people do, because people don't realize there's a big business in volunteer tourism.
mm-hmm.
Okay. So whether it's a church mission trip or just, a college trip or whatever, it's volunteer tourism. Their hook is, this is about you. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Whether if it's a church, this is for you to get closer to God. If it's or a school, whatever, this is so you can find yourself. So
that makes me.
No, let me just tell you. And when I have taken the very few times I've taken teams with me, I say, this is not about you.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care if you don't like the food. I don't care if you don't like the bedroom. I don't care if you don't like the bus or the boda or whatever you're riding on. If you can't go over there and make it not about you, please don't come. I will help you find someone to go with.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not me. Because this isn't about you finding yourself or finding God. It's about going over there and helping people
mm-hmm.
for their sake, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's a big business. Volunteer tourism is a big business. And it's so selfie and, look at all the good things I'm doing in my week over here and never thinking about it again. And that's not doing good work.
There's so much virtual signaling. I remember reading about these tourists who would go down to Costa Rica to save turtle eggs. And they would go down for like a week or something like that and protect the turtle eggs. And I was like, you've got to be joking me. Like, you really think you as a Canadian or American are going to go down there and save the world one turtle egg at a time? Like, this is just not the way it's done. I mean, no. People are so blinded. And I think that the marketing is just so deceptive in the way that it's done. It just makes me sick in a lot of instances.
No, I am totally with you. I mean, we are not huge charity supporters either. I mean, even before I had my own, obviously, we donate to us too.
Yeah. So let's pause there for a second. That's another thing. Not only are you donating your time, spending your resources to fly over there and help and do these things, but you actually take your own dollars that you earn from your other sources of income and actually put into the fund, because you believe it. So to forget about taking a salary, it's actually money out of your pocket that goes in as well, right?
I got in an argument with somebody on Facebook because he's like, you're not being honest about something. I don't know. He read something wrong. And I said, look, I donate 10% of our income. Why would I pay myself a salary out of the money that I just paid to put in there? I don't understand. I mean, he just kept, and people were jumping in going, I don't think he knows what he's talking about. Because I'm like, and it was on my personal page. It wasn't on but I'm just like, why would I be donating and then taking it back out? I think I would be losing in that payroll tax and all that situation. So, we believe in the work. We've been doing it. My kids donate to it. My husband and I, we're totally empty nesters now. So, I mean, we donate to it. My son has been 10 times and lived in Tanzania for 3 months. My daughter's been 5 times. They're very active they're at the place in their life. They can't do so much traveling, but they are active in ideas and talking to people and all that stuff. So, I mean, this is just what we do as a family.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
Amazing. I also wanted to ask you, is there a religious connotation with the work that you do? Is this you have to be a Christian to be able to do? Is it church sponsored or Islamic sponsored or any other type of religious organizations that if someone is donating, then they're putting their vote towards this?
No. We have now in Uganda, you pretty much have three things. You have Christians, which is a lot of times sort of mixed with tribal culture things. There's about 10% Muslims in Uganda. And then kind of everybody else. A very few, because of the Indian population, like Buddhists, Hindu, whatever. We have everybody in all of our schools. We have Muslims in our schools. We have Muslims in our program. We actually, which is really funny to me. So the directors of those programs are Christians. But it's not a Christian program. I mean, we're not a Christian-based program. So we have Muslim girls who set up for a church thing that's on Saturdays that's ancillary to everything. And the Muslim girls are setting up. They're like, hey, we're setting up. We're going to do the dance. So, I mean, everybody's involved. Nobody's turned away. We operate out of our belief system, but anybody that needs help, if we are capable of helping them, we help them, period. End of story. That's it. So, you can't step outside of your personal belief, but there are church-based organizations, and then there are people who are employees or whatever that are of whatever faith. And that's sort of us. We're in that second category.
Okay, that makes sense. I just think it is important to understand if someone wants to support what it is they're supporting, if there is a political agenda, if there is a religious, how all of these things fit together and work. And as we said earlier, being transparent about all these things, I think it's the right way to do it.
The poorest of the poor. The two schools besides our work in Namwango is the teen moms in general, vulnerable girls. Two of the schools, one is in Mbarara's slum, and one is in this village called Rakobo that was settled with Rwandan refugees. So Uganda takes the most refugees of any country in the world. Don't totally know why, because they can't afford their own people. But anyway, that's what they do. So they had all these Rwandan refugees from the genocide. They had just started this national park. They sent all these Rwandan refugees into this park, gave them a place and said, here are the rules. Don't kill the animals, whatever. So they don't have a clinic. They didn't have a school. They didn't have a well. They don't have a road. And so that is an extremely poor village where the school has only been there, 2.5 terms because of all these lockdowns. Those are both enormously poor. I mean, well under $1 a day is what anybody that's working is making. And then the third school is a baby's home towards the east of Jinja, with its orphans. And so we are working everywhere we work with the poorest people. If you are starving, I don't care if you think the turtle is God. I mean, let me give you some food if I have it. So, and we go through villages with witch doctors, and the witch doctors all have a tree. You probably know this from Africa. So you have a big tree, and they have like chairs hanging in the tree and things hanging in the tree. And that's the witch doctor's tree. And all that. So, I mean, they may not like us too much, but that's okay.
Okay. So in general terms, are there any other pitfalls or things that people should know, or due diligence, or things that they should look into when looking at a charity? Obviously, I want my listeners to go out there and do their research on you, and if it makes sense for them to support what you're doing. But just in general terms, how do people see these types of things, or what should they keep in mind?
There are, at least for U.S. charities, several rating organizations and that, the charity voluntarily joins them in general. And then it'll tell you how much of a percentage goes for various things. What you want in general, if it's a big organization, is at least 85% going to the work, because anything more than that, they're paying for offices and expensive marketing and billboards and that sort of thing. I would also really, look into things like, and ask them questions. Almost all of them will have an annual report or something. Charities have to file taxes over $50,000 a year. So, their annual reports, we have an annual report, it's on our website. And see how much are they paying for salaries? How much are they paying for marketing? I mean, marketing now is kind of a bugaboo because you've got social media, but they don't want to show you to anybody till you pay. And then you keep paying all this money. And, we're in an area here, for instance, where we have a lot of military and vets. So we have a lot of billboards for vet-oriented charities. Well, I always think, how much is that billboard costing you? You don't just want to look at the slick campaign and the great photography and the amazing videos and say, oh my gosh, this is so great. This is how I'm going to save the turtle or feed a child or sponsor a child. Because a lot of child sponsorships, you're paying $30 a month. And then if you really look at it, at the breakdown, not that much of that money is going to the child. Yeah. So, you just, these days, sadly, need to look beyond the slick marketing campaigns. And I am not denigrating big charities, because there are big charities doing great work. But small charities tend to be leaner and faster. If I give to a big charity, like, let's just say the Red Cross, I don't know, I'm not, whatever. How long until my money does something? How long is my money sitting at the Red Cross's bank account before it does something? If you're going to a small charity who's embedded in a country and really has local people working, they're going to be able to make a big impact with your money fast, which is what you want. You don't want them making interest on your money or investing your money or, whatever. So there are a lot of people doing great work. And then there's some that, there's one, I'm not going to say who it is, you would know them instantly, that like 45% goes to the work. 45, that's it. And they make millions of dollars.
So if someone went to okay, first of all, tell me the name of the website again. If someone wanted to go on the computer right now, tell me the name again. And then if they went on that website and they looked at the financials, what are they going to see? What are they going to find?
So we have an annual report. It's at the bottom. I believe it's at the bottom. I had somebody volunteer their time to redo my website. So I think it's at the bottom. And you will just see how much went to food, how much went to, when it says salaries, those are Ugandans' salaries. They're not, nobody here makes any salary. We do pay, obviously, our teachers and social workers and security guard and things like that. And you'll just see like a pie chart with how much went, how much we brought in, pictures, kind of an annual reporty sort of a thing with this is what the year was. You are always welcome to send me a message on social media or send me an email from the website or whatever and ask any questions. I'm happy to do a Zoom. That's how I got this girl from Germany. She's like, I really want to know more about it. We talked for an hour and then she redid my website. So, the website is www.18.org. We are 1018 Uganda, spelled out all words in Instagram, and 1018.org, all words on Facebook. And I am on LinkedIn, but I don't do a whole lot on LinkedIn because I don't get it really. Okay. I don't really get LinkedIn. I'm not on LinkedIn either. That's fine. I just share stuff from other places to LinkedIn. Yeah. But I am probably too accessible. So I am happy to answer or do a private call or Zoom or whatever with anybody. Cause I do a lot of other things. I've written books. I'm a grandmother. I have this other work I do, but this is my passion. This is where my
I can see that.
Is. And so I'm always happy to talk to people about it.
And you mentioned that someone did the website. Is that common where someone will have some type of skill or they own a business and through that they're able to contribute in possibly non-financial ways? Because sometimes people are comfortable with other things that they can do because, of some of the problems that we've talked about with other charities, I think people have been burnt before and maybe have a bad taste in their mouth. So as they're getting comfortable, what are things that you guys are looking for, or how could someone help or contribute in non-financial ways to push the to help people in Uganda?
Well, one of the best things, and we've really, with the changes in social media algorithms and all that, I really had a lot of conversation about this actually recently, and peer-to-peer things, just sharing our posts, telling somebody, hey, I heard Jennings on MIKKEL's podcast, or I read about this and check it out. I mean, just a peer-to-peer sort of thing that costs nothing is just a way to get the word out. I do speaking, and that doesn't cost, I don't charge to go speak somewhere. I can do it on Zoom. If you have a small group, a book club, women's club, Bible study, Rotary, I speak a lot. I've done a lot of Rotary and that sort of thing, talks. Rotary's been a big supporter for us. We've gotten a couple grants from Rotary in the last couple of years. Just those don't cost you anything but a little bit of time. I had somebody last year who said, hey, I'm doing ads management for this company and I'd love to donate, $30 a month. I'll do it through my ad campaign on Facebook and let me I'll run the ads for you and pay because I don't pay. And that was great. She did it for like 3 months. That's how long she said she was going to do it. And, I mostly wrote the ads, but she scheduled them and boosted them and whatever other things you do. I don't know. I'm not good at that. That anything like that, but honestly, just word of mouth, just say, and right now things are crazy everywhere. You may not have money to put into it, but if you just share us with somebody or have me talk to somebody or whatever, or just every time you see a post, just hit share.
And share this podcast episode. I think, a lot of my listeners know and do share my work. I mean, if you guys were ever going to share any of my work, please share this one. Share this one. This is really important stuff here. And I think Jennings has been very amazing with her time in explaining all of these concepts to us. So try to get the word out there as much as possible. I think it's really important.
Yeah, I mean, for us, I do the very best when people hear me talk about it because I'm a good writer. I am a writer, but you can't explain all this in a social media post or a blog post or a monthly newsletter. 283
characters or something is not going to quite tell the entire story.
And so, when people hear about it and really understand, and like I said, I'm very practical. So I don't do a lot of this flowery, promising blah. This is how it is. This is what we do. This is what we can do with your money. And if you can support us in any way, that's awesome. I have no other promises beyond that. That's it. But with us, you can literally make a difference to somebody. You can literally make an impact in somebody's life without being hyperbolic at all. You can literally save somebody's life. And if this is called to, if it calls to you, then I would love for you to get involved because people who do get involved tend to be very passionate about it. And that's what we want. I'd rather have 100 people super passionate than 1,000 people who could care less, but they just send a little money every month,
Well, and that's exactly what I'm doing. Like I said earlier, me and you took a phone call together. I was really moved by the story. I have a platform. This will get listened to by hopefully tens of thousands of people. And this is my way of helping and contributing to try to get the word out there. So I'll certainly be doing my part to share it on social media, in my newsletter, on my website at expatmoneyshow.com. I'll make sure that I have the links to your program and to all of your things on there. And then, yeah, let's spread the word.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I so appreciate it. This was great. You're the only person. I mean, I signed up for that, whatever it was. I don't even remember, Podmatch. And I was so excited because this is great.
Well, I think that this is a really important topic to me because I have traveled through Uganda, and Uganda really meant something to me. And when I learned about all of the problems that are happening specifically with these lockdowns with COVID, it's like, wow, I need to do something to get involved. And so messaged you immediately. We took the phone call, we discussed things, and now we're having you on today. So thank you, Jennings, for the work that you do. I think it is tremendously, tremendously important. And I'm so happy to be able to do my small part by sharing the message.
I really appreciate it. Thank you.
And once more, if my listeners want to get a hold of you, if they want to find out more about what you do, that website again, tell us the full website, maybe even spell it out for us so people have an understanding. 10 as actually,
www.10EIGHTEEN.org. So the number 10, the word 18.org.
Perfect.
Because all the numbers and all the words were taken. So we had to split it up.
Yeah. Well, that's good. Spend money not on the expensive domain names,
right.
you know, $5,000 for a domain name. Spend the money on the people.
$12 domain name. That's
exactly. I also thought when you were talking, I'm like, wow, she does like a lot of guerrilla marketing. Then I was like, haha, Uganda, guerrillas. That's good.
There you go. I haven't gotten to Bwindi, but I'm going to get there. It's on my
It's so beautiful. It's so beautiful.
Yeah. It's far from where I normally work. Although now that I'm working in Mbarara, it's not as far. But I used to work all the way in Tororo, which is almost in Kenya. So it was all the way on the other side.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I really appreciate this. 1018, you guys go check it out. Amazing work. Jennings, I'll talk to you soon. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Bye.